Hello, Jamf Nation, and welcome to 1 o'clock. Hope lunch was great. This is a session on streamlining enterprise certificate management. It's a two-phased session approach with 3 industry experts. We're going to start off with phase 1. We're going to step through a product focus where we have a feature overview of external CAs and how organizations can be successful with the features and functionality built into Jamf. And then we're going to elevate to an enterprise panel discussion focused on helping you automate, simplify your processes, and strengthen your relationship with all areas of your organization to effectively manage certificates. I'm Greg Mackey. I'm a client engineer at Jamf. This is not a typical Tuesday for me. I typically, I'm heads down, looking in logs, partnering with clients to solve their organization's challenges, come up with new ways to improve user experiences and do our work better. I would like to introduce Martin Barnard. He's a Jamf product manager in this feature area. He'll be our industry expert on development of solutions within Jamf. IBM operates in over 117 countries. They manage over 500,000 identities within their systems, and over 100,000 IBMers choose the Mac to do their work. Jonathan Krauer, I'd like to introduce Jonathan. He is the lead engineer at the Mac IBM program. He'll be joining us on our panel today as an industry expert from Enterprise. DigiCert is a titan of the PKI industry. They focus on providing enterprise-grade PKI solutions, and their newest product and offering is DigiCert PKI One, or DigiCert One Trust Lifecycle Manager. I'd like to introduce you to Doug Knight. Key takeaways from our session today. So in the next about half hour through that two-phased approach, we're going to start with that product focus. Key takeaways being an overview of the third-party CA integrations that are available in Jamf today. We're going to highlight how to plan your deployment, review payloads and inventory, explore ways to gauge our effectiveness with visibility and observability, and then step through the simple setup in the newest integration. That second phase is going to be our enterprise insights from panelists, key takeaways from it, perspectives on Apple management evolution as it applies to this topic, what it really takes to create an enterprise-grade solution like this, and then real-world challenges that we should all anticipate when we're going through this implementation, effective ways to overcome challenges that you'll face within enterprise orgs, and then we're going to step through APIs and resources. So to kick us off, Martin, can you step us through some features, just a quick overview of the third-party CA integrations that are available in Pro?
Yeah, let me make sure my mic's on here. Here we go. All right. So we have a couple of key third-party certificate authority integrations in Jamf Pro, and I know everybody here is here to talk about DigiCert One Trust Lifecycle Manager, but I would be remiss if I didn't cover some of our other key PKI integrations. We recently revamped our Active Directory Certificate Services connector and built an outbound mode for that utility, and we have that integration, and we also have a direct integration with CyberArk Machine Identity Security, which is the old Venafi TPP or Trust Protection platform as well. So wanted to make sure to call out those other CA integrations that we have as well so people are aware.
So when we focus on certificate deployments, can you kind of step us through the payload options and how to use product-based features to get started?
Yeah, so as Greg mentioned, one of the most critical things about deploying certificates at scale is planning. And really, one of the first places to start is to think about how you're going to deploy those certificates out to your end users and which payloads or levels you're going to deploy them out to. In Jamf Pro, we have 3 different ways that you can distribute certificates. We have the ACME certificate protocol, and we did just build in automatic renewal of certificates in the ACME protocol as well for people who are using that. We also support SCEP and the certificate payload. SCEP and certificate are going to be the ones that we focus on here today as a part of the integration with DigiCert One Trust Lifecycle Manager. And then think about which user or device level you're going to deploy these certificates. It's kind of the basic building blocks of where you're going to get started.
Doug, from DigiCert, are there any particular deployment models that you would share with enterprise as a current best practice or a mainline method of being successful?
Yeah, I think for the most part, most folks are going to want to go with SCEP as their default method that they're going to want to do, mainly for a couple reasons. One is when you use like a certificate method using the API, the certificate generation is going to happen in the cloud instance. It's not going to happen at the device level to generate the private key first, and there's a couple extra steps that have to happen on the cleanup side. With SCEP, the private key will get generated there on the local client, and then the CSR gets generated and set up, and then everything gets processed. There's also a couple other areas of flexibility that SCEP offers us today that may not be found in the API or certificate method. So we recommend our documentation. If you look at our documentation, we recommend that you look at SCEP first. But there may be certain situations where you can't use SCEP. Maybe you're going to be doing something with SMIME, for example. So in that method, you're going to want to use the certificate payload method to deploy things.
Very cool. Thank you. Martin, so some of the benefits for the CA integrations and things in Jamf that help those organizations be successful in streamlining certificate management.
Yeah, absolutely. So a couple of the reasons that you'd want to have a full integration as opposed to just deploying a SCEP or an ACME payload directly is the ability to really have a single pane of glass for certificate inventory, which is baked into Jamf Pro. So all of the certificates that are deployed and sent out to the end user devices all get reported back in inventory. And then we bring those all together into one consolidated reporting in the PKI screens in Jamf Pro. The other nice features are revocation. So if you want to make sure that certificates are getting revoked when devices are wiped or unenrolled out of Jamf Pro, that's only available for the direct integrations that were mentioned before. If you're using the UI in Jamf Pro for setting up and configuring, I guess even if you've set up and configured, you can see that the connection is up and running between DigiCert and Jamf Pro. You'll get a nice green banner at the top. If everything's up and running and everything's connecting, you'll know that it's working. And then the other benefit is API-based configuration updates. The benefit there is you don't have to actually be in receipt of the credentials, the client auth credentials from, say, DigiCert to actually generate those certificates. Your security team can pass directly into Jamf Pro the certificate that's needed to generate the certificates.
In a real world, John, have you ever asked a PKI team or a SecOps team to send you an email with an auth cert for the entire PKI service?
I mean, I believe that's best practice, right? So.
To be clear, no.
No, and I gotta say, one of the things from a DigiCert perspective, one thing I've been really impressed with the integration in particular is the revocation feature that Jamf has implemented here. I found it to be very responsive, like within 5 minutes of an event, that certificate doesn't only get revoked on the Jamf side of things and the inventory there, but it also happens on the DigiCert side of things. So our inventory is kept accurate and up to date as well. And so Jamf did a really good job with setting that up.
So to unpack just a little bit, when a certificate is removed from scope from a managed device and that certificate's no longer in use, this managed revocation functionality just automates actually revoking that at the CA. So Martin, could you kind of step us through what that simple integration setup looks like?
Yeah, so Greg had initially asked me to throw together some slides to demo how to set up this integration. And I thought about it for a while and then decided not to do it because it's only 5 or 6 clicks. You're gonna go into the settings, you're gonna go to the PKI screen, and you're gonna walk through a wizard. And like I said, it's only 5 or 6 clicks. You're gonna name the integration, you're gonna decide whether or not you want certificate revocation on or off, and you're gonna upload the client auth certificate and the password that is generated out of DigiCert One Trust Lifecycle Manager. So in DigiCert One, and I'll let Doug elaborate on this a little bit here, you can generate a service account user, give it the appropriate permissions, and then plug that right into Jamf Pro, and you're up and running.
Yeah, and that user account, you know, it's like we do follow the whole course of doing least privilege as possible. So there's only 2 attributes that service account user, or it could be a regular DigiCert One user, needs to have, and that's the ability to, you know, be a certificate manager in TLM, but also the ability to have read-only capabilities to the CA itself. You don't have to grant complete admin functionality to that service account user, which is really nice. And you just generate that, and off you go, and you'll be generating certs.
So going back to the usability front, with the UI setup, we're accustomed to, well, you had mentioned 6 quick clicks and it's done. Usually in real world deployments, you're gonna have inputs from other areas of your organization that may not be on your device management teams. One of the things that I've observed in this integration is, hey, you can set up portions of it, save it, and then use that privilege template that Martin had mentioned to just give instructions to another person within the org. Hey, you have privileges. Can you complete this step? Here's how to do it. Martin, can you talk a little bit about the TLM payloads?
Yeah, so as I mentioned before, there's really 2 payloads that you're going to be using with DigiCert One Trust Lifecycle Manager. It's the SCEP payload and the certificate payload. And there are a few different reasons why you might pick one over the other, but for the most part, SCEP really is the recommendation from both Jamf and DigiCert. SCEP supports device challenges, so that is a per device challenge that's going to be issued down to that device that's going to create that security between that device and DigiCert One when a certificate is requested. We support variable substitution in those SCEP payloads. We support SANs in those SCEP payloads. And then we also optionally support seat creation. So should you need to have seats created in DigiCert One, you can do that through the SCEP payload as an option that is hard-coded and baked into the certificate payload. But I'm going to let Doug elaborate on what seats are.
Yeah, so seats is just basically the way that we track usage. You know, it's just a label. So you know, we have different seat types in Trust Lifecycle Manager currently. So we have user seats that are associated with an identity of some sort. We have device seats that can be associated to a device, separate. Server seats. So all a seat is just a way for us to track usage. And so, you know, in this case here, you know, there's multiple ways that seats can be created. We can integrate with your IDP if you want, and you know, we could, when a user logs in, that can create a seat for them. If you're a real fan of CSV files, you can build a CSV file and do a bulk upload and create seats that way. But the integration is a nice way to go. It's just real simple. It's a checkbox you check. And then also on the DigiCert side of things, just as you have a payload, capability here in Jamf. What you're going to be doing on the DigiCert side is creating a profile that mirrors the payload here that you create in Jamf. And so, we give you obviously the ability, you want to map those things out appropriately so that they match up.
And one of the reasons that we made that an optional seat creation is we did hear that some orgs wanted to be able to feed that seat creation from things other than Jamf Pro. So we heard some feedback pretty early on when we rolled this out from IBM and others that, hey, it'd be really convenient if these seats were just created for us with the SCEP payload. And we sat down and thought about it and talked to other people, and one of the conclusions that we came to is that we did want to make that an optional feature because some people were feeding seats, like Doug mentioned, from IDPs or from asset management systems or from HR systems directly.
So, John, when a new IBMer joins the organization, how does that seat get generated in context to the integration?
Well, it's a little out of my wheelhouse, so I'm not sure exactly how that would be done, but using this automatic seat generation just immediately takes care of it. So if a brand new employee enrolls a device, they're ready to go before their certificate is deployed. So,
thanks. Martin, so getting into planning our deployment, can you step through the really key considerations there?
Yeah, so Doug mentioned profiles in Trust Lifecycle Manager. And so the profiles need to be aligned and harmonized with what you're putting into the payloads. And that's absolutely critical. Some of the really basic things to think about are the enrollment code, how long you want that enrollment code to be valid for. Is it going to get issued to a device? And is it going to be valid long enough for that device to be online and actually take action and receive its cert? The other thing is the renewal window. You're going to want to make sure that you align the renewal functionality in Jamf Pro. And I'm going to air quote renewal because I really should be saying redistribution. You want to make sure that that redistribution window aligns with the renewal window of the certificate in Trust Lifecycle Manager. And I bring up the two words renewal and redistribution, and I just want to elaborate for everybody here what is actually happening in the background when that renewal approaches. So Jamf Pro has a renewal monitor in the background that runs every 6 hours and looks for certificates that need to be renewed. And what is actually happening is we are redeploying and redistributing the entire configuration profile when a certificate enters into its renewal window. So it's critical that you don't set a renewal window on Trust Lifecycle Manager for something like 30 days and then start triggering redistribution in Jamf Pro at say 45 days. You're going to run into problems real quick. So lots of harmony, lots of making sure that you're in sync with the person or organization that owns the identity aspect of, or owns the Trust Lifecycle Manager application at your org. The other piece that I want to mention is scoping and smart groups. I truly believe this is one of the most powerful aspects of Jamf Pro. Building off of smart groups for compliance allows you to make sure that certs are only going to devices that are truly in scope and should be receiving those certificates. Probably not the best practice to just roll out certs and give them to everybody, every device that's enrolled. Most orgs want to have some parameters around there, around compliance, operating systems, et cetera. And it allows you to roll out slowly. So utilizing smart groups allows you to think about a staged rollout as opposed to trying to blast out a ginormous amount of certificates all at once.
Yeah, and then just to kind of reinforce that, we recently had a decent-sized company, not as big as IBM, but 10,000 seats. So they just did a migration from our previous PKI platform to our new one using Jamf, and they were able, using smart groups, they were able to transition 10,000 desktops, over a weekend. So using the smart group capability.
So we're talking about scope in two contexts, right? for deployment based on, hey, we want to gauge, I guess, the deployment sizing. But there's also context of, hey, who should be able to obtain a certificate? What are the prerequisites to having that ability to have a cert? Anything to add on either of those two comments, John?
Yeah, I mean, like Martin had mentioned, smart groups are critical for deploying, especially in a large organization. Depending on what your security posture is, there could be various states that a device could be in that they are no longer compliant, and you want to prevent them from being able to access your network. And so having multiple different granular smart groups as exclusions kind of helps to make sure that those devices aren't getting access that they shouldn't have until they fall into compliance, and then at that point they would move into the in-scope portion, and then those certificates would then be redeployed. And Mac IBM has done a number of massive rollouts, not just certificates, but software and things like that. And we've found that phased approaches is the easiest way to manage load and ensure that all of the devices are dealt with in as short a time as possible, but also in a distributed way. So using things like the computer ID and then incrementing that to add in batches of groups as they're deployed, it works really well.
Nice. So getting to that next step of gauging effectiveness, Martin, can you kind of step us through what those key features look like?
Yeah, so after you've rolled out some certs and rolled out some payloads and things are flowing, well, you probably want to check and make sure things are working. And be able to make sure that things are continuing to work. And again, the power of Jamf Pro really helps here with smart groups and with dashboard widgets. You can quickly set up dashboard widgets and monitor your deployments and make sure that, say you want to set up a group to look at your Wi-Fi certs that might be expiring in the next 10 days. You've previously set your renewal window at 30 and your redistribution in Jamf Pro at 30. Well, you would expect that number to not be very high. It's a great way to see those devices that might be slipping through the cracks and take some action on them before certs are removed or before they fall completely out of your management window to put a new cert on.
So the call out, I guess, if we check out that slide, there's three key attributes that are really important into forming some of those smart groups for just reporting and observability on status. Those key off of the certificate issuer. That's really important when it comes to external CA integrations that were mentioned early in that product overview. The certificates expiring being, keying off of that certificate list data for when the certificate is actually expiring, that date, we're processing off of it. And then the certificate name being the subject name. I mean, that's another thing, like when we look back into that planning phase, if we could talk to that a little bit. Even with simple things of what we've got in our subject name, I think we might have just moved quickly through that aspect of the planning and the deployment. But John, would you have anything to add on that last part of naming certificates?
Yeah, it was actually something that we looked at as we were migrating to DigiCert One, was formatting the certificates in a way that it made it easier for us to find and report on them. And so changing the name of the certificate with like a templated system. So we were using just like prepending the certificate with different letters to denote what type of certificate it is. And then as you can see in that example, we can match a regex a pattern to just find those particular certificates. So we would have different buckets, right? So some, we're tracking our wireless certificates, but we're also tracking VPN and so on and so forth. So it works really well, and something to consider if you haven't started your certificate journey yet, to think about how you intend to manage them, or to be able to pick them out from all of the other certificates that might be being reported on in your system.
Nice.
And Greg, I don't know if it was really shown earlier on one of the slides. I think we were a little limited on screen real estate, but the single pane of glass in Jamf Pro in the consolidated inventory does bring a lot of really key details about the certificates back into one place that you can look at. And just another benefit of having this all synced up in Jamf Pro.
Let's zoom out a little bit, Doug.
Okay.
So, as an organization that is tasked with making sure that they're maintaining all of their certificates, regardless of whether or not they are for Apple devices, but across that org, making sure everything is valid. Can you kind of step us through what some of the observability tools look like in TLM?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a screenshot from, Trust Lifecycle Manager. This is our, dashboard. And so the whole philosophy around, Trust Lifecycle Manager as a CLM is, first of all, just like Jamf, we're independent. It's architected independent of CAs as well. So in addition to supporting the standard DigiCert CAs out there, both our public and private CAs, we are also architected to support other ones. So we can also integrate Microsoft CAs into our platform. We can integrate Amazon, CAs. There's others that are coming. And so basically what we want to do is we want to build this repository of your entire certificate estate so you can get a view of what's going on. So in this example here, this is, I call it the cup of coffee screen. Right, you start your day off, what are you going to do? Is like, I'm going to hit the dashboard and see what's going on. And in this example here, you can see here on the far left-hand side, the widget there, it gives you a quick view of what certificates are expiring in certain time periods. What is expired, what's in the next week, what's in the next month, what's in the next couple months. And so you can get a quick view. And then if you click on that, what it will then do is it will bring you up that view of all of those certificates that are going to be expiring. So in this example here, these are certs that are expiring this week. Kind of a nice report to have. In any view right here, you can click where this arrow is here, and it will create a report that you can have generated and say, hey, every Monday at midnight, send this report out to this people, and they'll see what certificates are expiring this week, so you can get visibility into what's going on. Now, some of those certificates, if they're like tied to some of our automation capabilities, like on servers and such, you can actually fire off that automation right now if you don't want to wait for the time period to kick it off automatically. And then, if you drill down even further, it'll take you down into information about that specific certificate. So not only do we supply information that's just made up, that the certificate is made up with, we also provide some analysis capability too. So we'll do a security rating on that certificate. So if, for whatever reason, you have a SHA-1 cert out there, it will have a bad security rating because it's a small key size, and you'll have that, see that capability. And all those attributes are filterable and searchable, so that you can, get those views, right away. And we want to build off of this. And so one of the things that we're working on right now is the notification system. So today we're tying it into reports that get sent out through email. We're evolving this now to go into other systems like your ServiceNow platform, or send out a notification via a Slack message to certain people, so there's a little more immediacy there on what's going on. And so it's all about giving you this comprehensive view of your certificate estate.
A good 360 view into everything. Yeah. Now we're going to elevate to our enterprise panel. So we're going to enter into some Q&A. We just got a handful of questions, and we'll chime in, and they'll be offering recommendations throughout here. Once we wrap up, we're hoping that you continue this dialogue, and we'll open it up for questions with the audience as well. So Martin, if you could kick us off, how do you envision these features in CA integrations aligning with Apple's strategic direction for zero trust network access?
Yeah, absolutely. So we really do believe that ACME is where things are headed, and that ZTNA is where things are headed. But we have to meet people where they are, and not everyone's ready for that right now. And to get there, everyone needs to have a solid identity experience established first. And so the features that we have built out with DigiCert really help to lay some of that groundwork for organizations to establish a solid identity pattern inside their organization before they can move to more sophisticated things like ZTNA and all the trust evaluations that will have to happen with that model.
Doug.
Yeah, it's a hot topic for sure, you know. And this is something that we're tracking. A lot of the things that are being developed in this space are still in draft form, you know, in RFCs and such. And we've always been a big proponent of ACME. I mean, our agents are ACME-based agents. We support the ACME protocols, you know, today in our platform. And so we're monitoring these draft specifications. It's great to see, you know, titans like Apple, you know, championing this. They're a little ahead of the curve of some other folks. So, you know, but our plan is to support these things in our platform as well so that, you know, we can provide the, you know, the best solution for people. I think this is going to be a real interesting thing to monitor over the next year, I think.
As somebody that's in the epicenter in enterprise, John.
I actually don't have too much to offer. I mean, I think that, like Martin had said, that, I mean, that's an ultimate goal. But for enterprises, agility doesn't necessarily translate, especially if you're dealing with multiple stakeholders. So to me, it seems the best way to try to get to ZTNA is to have incremental progress, right? You want to continue to roll things out while engaging the affected teams that need to understand like where we're headed, right? So
the good habits and the good process you put in today will reap benefit in the future when this becomes real.
Yeah, that's right.
So earlier this year, Jamf Pro added support for integrating with DigiCert One TLM. How did it start for you? And what did that journey look like? And we'll start with Martin.
Well, this has been a pretty long journey to get Trust Lifecycle Manager built into Jamf Pro. This started probably around February of 2024-ish. And we started with some preliminary calls with IBM and with DigiCert. It actually helped. We all came together and rallied around a end of issuance date that DigiCert was striving towards for the end of life for PKI platform. And it really helped us all come together with a goal in mind of when we needed to have this integration completed for our customers to give everyone a successful and ample time to transition to the new platform.
Doug?
Yeah, and so for us, you know, we had Platform 8, which was a really solid platform. It's been around for a long time. But we also developed this, you know, DigiCert One platform, which is SaaS-based, it's more scalable, more API-driven. It's the best way. And for a vendor like Jamf, you know, when we come to them and say, hey, you know, it's like we got this new thing, the first question out of their mouth is like, okay, well, what customers are on it, right? And so we have large customers like IBM and customers of all shapes and sizes that were on Platform 8. And so, you know, it wasn't just one particular customer, it was multiple customers that came to us and we were able to work with Jamf. And, you know, I think part of the message too is that we have a great partnership, the two companies, you know, that goes back to PKI 8. And so we were able to come together and get our product teams together and work things out. And of course, having a line in the sand for the end of issuance of Platform 8, which was October 1st, you know, really helped drive things, yeah. And so, and the good news is, you know, we had well over 600 customers, you know, that had to migrate. And, you know, we've gotten past that issuance date with no major issues. We had to extend a couple, but, you know, everyone else we were able to find a way to get them, you know, transitioned on the DigiCert One. And having Jamf integration was the number one thing on Platform 8 that was an inhibitor.
John?
Well, the other two have already covered kind of like the initial discussions, which I think were probably the most important. But I can talk a bit about after getting the first alpha and testing it. You know, we were using these very early builds to try to make sure that everything worked and find weird gaps or edge cases, filing bugs, and getting those properly fixed so that we can continue to retest. It was an iterative process, but overall it was very positive. I think that the journey that the team took when they were building this integration was an excellent journey. They did a great job.
Yeah, the rapid iteration that we have gone through with both DigiCert and IBM together, and the feedback that we've gotten so quickly from both parties has been instrumental in helping us make this feature better quickly and solving problems that customers are looking to solve. Seat creation wasn't in our first release of this. And we continue to add more things to this integration, continue to make it more robust to solve the customer problems that customers are facing. We just added SANs into the certificate payload in our most recent release. So yeah, it's been a great process working collaboratively with IBM and DigiCert on getting feedback and rapidly improving.
So through times of rapid change, we've learned a thing or two. What common pitfall, real-world challenge, or key consideration should organizations be mindful of when they're getting started? Martin?
So I've had more customer conversations troubleshooting DigiCert and Jamf Pro than I probably ever expected to be having. And it always all comes back to starting small. That is the biggest pitfall that I see is customers going into DigiCert, creating a profile that has multiple SANs, fixed attributes, plus a whole slew of things in the subject, and then they go to issue the first cert and it just doesn't work. That's the biggest pitfall that I see is start small. Start with, can you deploy one cert that has a subject of a serial number? And is it creating a seat automatically, if that's something you want to do? Like, just starting simple and then building on that. That is the pitfall that I've seen time and time again, is people jumping straight to, I want to do the world.
Doug, what do you want to highlight?
Yeah, I amen to what Martin just said. I was the kid that took the TV apart, when I was growing up. And, it's like I wanted to do everything at once, not read the instructions or anything like that. So first thing I would recommend is that, go to docs.digicert.com and go to our TLM section. We have an integration guide for integrating with Jamf. And in that guide, we also reference the Jamf documentation. The documentation is really good. And if you follow the documentation, which kind of falls in that thing of, crawl, walk, run, type of mentality, start with a few simple things first, that's going to be a good step. The other thing I recommend is one of the capabilities that we have with our profiles is the ability to clone profiles. So as you build a profile and you get one that's successful for maybe doing one or two things, save it, clone it, and then use the clone to try something new. That way you always have a fallback position on a profile that works. And so, use the cloning capability to clone a profile and, try new things.
Hey, John.
I don't actually have too much to add. I think that it was pretty well covered. One thing I will say, at least from a Jamf perspective, is making sure that when you're building these profiles that you're actually using the correct extension attributes if you're using variables. I found by moving between different environments, I have been copy-pasting the SCEP profile and all of those settings, and then I had a test device get a certificate and it failed. It told me that it wasn't able to create the certificate. So I started screaming at my computer for a little while and then thought about it and realized that I had not updated the variable for the new environment because the extension attribute IDs were different. So I was trying to populate a certificate with an invalid extension attribute. And once I fixed that and redeployed the cert, it's fine.
So can we talk about examples or strategies you've used to overcome challenges that you think enterprise orgs will face in general with certificate management. Martin, can you kick us off?
You know, I don't really have a lot for this one. I think coming back to reading the documentation is like the key strategy of making sure you know what you're trying to achieve, planning, and starting small.
Doug.
Yeah, I think it's a standard four-phase approach. One, first figure out what you have, right? Go out there and gather your inventory, see what you have, assess what your needs are, how you need to categorize things, assess where you're at. Hey, prioritize things. It's like, hey, we have some certs that have smaller, key sizes. We need to upgrade those first, right? You'll kind of get an idea of what the lay of the land is first. So first, assess where you're at. Second is the big planning piece. Go through the testing, create test groups, get some things, locked down. Then go through the actual migration, and then reassess, monitor, track, see how you're doing.
And John.
I would say that as I work for a large organization, everything is very segmented. So I don't have a lot of visibility into like the network side of things. Those are done by separate teams. Same thing with identity, handling the PKI. And so having good working relationships with those teams, that has been built over years, helps to facilitate and get things rolling. You're not having to try to reintroduce yourself, explain why you're doing things. If you're working, all towards a common goal, having these discussions about what needs to be done and what each team's part is to play in it, helped facilitate it and make it go a lot faster. So, I mean, the actual build of any type of PKI that you're going to deploy through Jamf Pro is like 10% of the project. Most of it is making sure that everybody knows what needs to be done.
Before we open up to some questions here, what's something you'd like everybody to know that'll help them with streamlining cert management in their environment? Bonus points if you call out a great resource to reference.
Our integration guides on learn.jamf.com and our API reference on developer.jamf.com.
Hey, Doug.
Yeah. So just like Martin said, check our docs, docs.digicert.com, and then dev.digicert.com. So if you want to, leverage our APIs to do some of this, you can do as well. And of course, buying more DigiCert and buying more Jamf would also be greatly appreciated by everybody, here on the panel. The current Mrs. Knight would appreciate it, I know that.
Hey, John.
I would say that if you haven't started deploying certificates yet, it can seem like a very large and insurmountable goal, but it really isn't. It's not as difficult as you might imagine. The documentation that has been talked about here it really is excellent. I did this before that documentation existed, but reading the documentation after the fact, it was wonderful. I wish that I had had it sooner, right? But just think about what are you trying to accomplish and how you can make it into bite-sized pieces, like you're saying, start small. And I think you'll be surprised at how quickly it'll come together.
Yeah, and one more thing too is like reach out to, if you're a DigiCert customer, if you're considering DigiCert, reach out to your rep, and your SE. And I know we'd be more than happy to show you. I'm doug.knight@digicert.com, shameless plug there with a K. You can send me an email and I can link you up with, the right person. We'd be more than happy to show you both sides of the integration, what it looks like on the DigiCert side. And we have a Jamf, our own Jamf instance that we can demonstrate that integration as well. So we'd be more than happy to show that to anybody too.
Did you just offer up demos?
Oh. Maybe, yeah, of course.
We're going to open up for questions from the audience here. So again, key takeaways, the things that we wanted to make sure everybody's walking away with is an overview of third-party CA integrations, cert task automation that's going to help us, get our weekends back, overview of payloads and inventory, gauging the effectiveness with observability, both in Jamf and in TLM, balancing that user experience with certificate security requirements of the org, ways to overcome challenges, and that overview with API and the REST schemas. We are going to be walking around and pass around a mic. If anybody has any questions, you got great resources to discuss those themes a little bit further, or whatever you want to talk about.
Awesome. So yeah, raise your hand and I'll come around with the mic.
Cool. Under what scenarios would you maybe want to use like an ACME cert versus a SCEP cert? Like what are some advantages of an ACME cert versus a SCEP cert versus your certificate payload?
Thank you for asking. Managed device attestation. So I said we firmly believe ACME is the future. Managed device attestation is the reason for that. Right now, that's not baked into DigiCert One. Who knows what the next 12, 24 months bring on your roadmap? I'm certainly
Got our top men on it.
certainly don't know what you guys have coming on your roadmap, but that's really the benefit there, is knowing that that device is the device that it says it is. It's backed by Apple, and if you deploy using ACME, that certificate then becomes baked into the secure enclave and is hardware bound. Lots of great benefits to the device identity there.
Cool. Thank you so much, everyone. Thanks, presenters.